keep following.
Game last night.
Well, I guess maybe we better have this done.
Seattle game.
Yeah, Seattle, Minnesota.
I turned it on. So I'm sitting back on. Then I turned it back on every 21.
Yeah, because I quit watching it all of a sudden. Yeah, they scored all the points in the fourth quarter, I guess. Wasn't it like 6-0 going into the
Just
fourth?
as a reminder that all of our meetings are recorded, so people can play them and they'll be out there forever.
Is it being recorded now?
Not yet.
Okay, so you're gonna have to watch your mouth.
Confidential, let you know, I just wanted to remind everybody. okay?
Keep it PG.
Mildest mannered guy, right there.
Okay, so we are live.
Okay. You got on your phone there.
6:58.
All right, we got a couple minutes. We'll wait a little bit.
Well, they almost pulled out on Saturday.
Oh, I tell you what, that was, we just need an offensive line to
Well, or quarterback.
spring things. Oh, we got three of them. They tried all three.
They tried them all.
Yeah.
Turned it off.
Well, it's probably.
So we turned off the mics until it's a little close.
Oh, okay, good. I would've been banned.
Everybody's relaxed.
Yeah.
Okay. It got really cold.
So when did this DOT proposal to do away with the left turns up at Bojangles there, when does that,
Well, I believe it's programmed to start right-of-way acquisition in 2019, if not.
I mean, when's the meeting where you get to say, we're not
The
really?
meeting was already held.
Yeah, but I
In
mean,
November.
you've already expressed your,
There was a public meeting where NCDOT's consultant solicited public comment.
Yeah.
The comment period closed probably either last Friday or a week ago Friday.
okay,
And what the consultants are gathering all the comments received, and then they're supposed to come and arrange a meeting
With
with
the
city
city,
staff, and
yeah.
the city manager, and
yeah.
planning staff, so we can talk to them about it. They are very aware of our displeasure.
Well, this raises an interesting point, and that is that I'm wondering, as the Planning and Zoning Board, it seems to me that, we should have gotten some kind of input here. I mean, shame on us for not reading the public notice that said come and express, but I mean, as a group, I mean, if the city council knew about this and maybe, by the way, our Planning and Zoning
Yeah.
Board has looked at this and thinks it's not a really good idea
We'll
too, and
make
so
sure
on,
that
so.
we'll forward.
Or maybe we do, I don't know. I was just,
invitations to the-
I'm talking process here more than substance.
Yeah, we'll make sure that any notice received will be forwarded.
Good, thanks. Oh, 7
7
o'clock. December meeting of the City of Belmont Planning and Zoning Board will come to order. Welcome, everyone. I have it on good authority that our last member will be here shortly.
And there he is.
That was very good authority, as you've seen. Chair will entertain a motion to set the agenda.
Move to set the agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it, and the agenda is set. Chair will also entertain a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting. Is there such a motion?
And I'll move to adopt the minutes of the the October meeting.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we submitted a couple of little editorial changes. There was one thing in there that I just didn't understand the wording, and maybe just because I'm lacking in my education, but it said on page 8 of 50 in our package, it says, Ms. DeHart explained that when the TIAs are completed, all projects are taken into consideration. She explained that the ordinance is written so that those completing the TIA take and grow the background and the project. I don't know what that I don't know what that wording means. Take and grow?
Well, I think it just needs to be clarified. What happens in the modeling when they do TIA, they apply a growth percentage, that they grow the trips in their calculations to address future growth. And I think it's just the wording in that.
Yeah, can we clean that wording up? Because take and grow sounds like, I'm gonna take and go on over here.
We're gonna grow the trips.
Yeah,
yes.
so if we could clear that up, that would be,
Absolutely.
that'd be good. And then I had, over on the last page, I think we need a little editorial comment in there somewhere. Do you have anything else, Jim?
I had already submitted, they're incorporated.
All
I
right.
thought so.
All right, any other comments, additions, or deletions to the minutes? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes of the October meeting as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, opposed, no, the ayes have it, and the minutes of the October meeting are approved. First item on the agenda today is public item ZA 2018-03, Home 2 Suites, Hawley Avenue, a request to establish a highway commercial conditional zoning district, HCCD, for location of a hotel on the 3.09 acres north side of Hawley Avenue.
Good evening, Board. Tonight we have before you ZA 2018-03. This is a request to keep the base highway commercial zoning, but establish a highway commercial conditional district. Therefore, the request is to change from HC to HCCD. Along with our conditional zoning process is also approval of a site-specific development plan. This specific request is to construct a 107-room hotel on the 3.09 acres on Hawley Avenue. And it's a building that's about 65,000 square feet. Our requirements, our regulations require any building over 50,000 square feet to either get approval through the conditional use permit or a conditional zoning district approval. The applicants are seeking approval for a building over this size and are also seeking relief from specific provisions of our land development code. The subject property is on Hawley Avenue to the north side of Hawley, west of Chick-fil-A. It's adjacent to the I-85 exit 27 off-ramp. This is part of the Montcross development owned by the Southern Benedictine Society. The applicant is Warren Norman Incorporated, and they represent the hotel partnership. So this area was previously subdivided into relatively uniform lots, and this request is to establish this conditional district on 6 complete lots and part of a 7th, and those specific parcel ID numbers are on page 1 of your staff report. The area is zoned currently highway commercial and is surrounded by other highway commercially zoned properties. Hotels are a permitted use in this zoning district. So the original sketch plan was submitted late July, and in that time period, the applicants have worked with staff and the city engineer to thoroughly refine the site plan that was included in your packet. The applicant is requesting relief in 4 areas. The first is to allow a building height of 4 stories. Staff supports this request as this is envisioned as our higher density and higher intensity land use area adjacent to our thoroughfares. Second, they're requesting permission to allow parking in the front yard area. As you can see, the shape of these properties combined have a lot of frontage, and this hotel is proposed to front Hawley and the traditional, loading and unloading area with associated parking in the front. In fact, there's parking on all sides, and staff supports this request as well. Third is reduction of the width of the Interstate 85 buffer. Our LDC Chapter 11 requires a 50-foot buffer along the interstate, and the applicant is requesting to reduce this from 50 to 25 feet. Also included in this requirement is an opaque buffer to a height of 8 feet, and that buffer will be installed in that 25-foot area. As a condition of approval, we are requesting that the healthy existing hardwood trees be preserved and protected during construction. And the applicant is also proposing supplemental landscape planning and may include a fence or a wall, depending on what the grade is like when the elevation, when they get in there.
The report says that other properties in the area also have reduced buffers. What, do you know what those are?
I do. So this is not an unusual request. The adjacent Chick-fil-A has a very reduced buffer, as well as the visitor center, if you're really familiar with that location.
What are they? Do you know what they are?
The visitor center is built practically right up to the property line. Chick-fil-A is, I want to say 10, maybe 20 feet. 15, yeah, so, yeah, 15. So, because, for that reason, and because the actual opaque buffer will be installed, staff does support that relief request. And fourth, the applicant is seeking approval of the specific architectural mix of materials as proposed.
There's also one thing I saw here on your staff analysis, page 13, pervious pavement required.
Okay.
What do you mean by pervious pavement requirement? What is different from,
Okay, that
why
is,
is that a condition we need to consider? What's different there?
where are you seeing that, if you don't mind?
Let's see, under staff analysis, right below background, about fourth sentence down, right after the buffer along I-85, comma, and pervious pavement
I do
requirement.
apologize for that. That was left in inadvertently. That is something we had negotiated or worked with the applicant, and they, in our initial discussions, they had thought about seeking relief from that requirement. They have agreed to go ahead and install what I think will be 6 parking spaces, which is a requirement. We require 5% of parking areas in excess of 36 spaces to be constructed with pervious pavement. Now, part of the discussion had to do with how does this look on the ground? And staff recommends installation of pervious pavers as opposed to pervious concrete. And we have seen where the pavers perform better than the concrete does.
Just to
for
allow
example, at
runoff?
the Walmart parking lot.
Just to allow runoff? Stormwater runoff?
Right, yeah, so it will allow the water to infiltrate.
Okay, understood.
So that is something that they are not seeking relief for.
Question about the EIFS.
Yes.
What exactly is that for people like me without much common
Right.
sense
So I
or
had to-
practical knowledge?
Make sure I have that handy. This is the exterior insulation and finish system, and it's a specifically engineered wall, wall material. Okay, it is known to be 20 to 30% more energy efficient for buildings, and it's just a engineering.
It's a new day and age of stucco, almost.
Yeah,
So it's pretty much like an insulation board and it's got
And so there's going to be more than is typically allowed, but we say that we want that because it's more energy efficient, and that's sort of the way in which these hotels are designed, franchised, if you will.
right, yeah.
What exactly building type is a hotel? I was a bit confused looking at chapter 4.
Right, as were we. It doesn't fit nicely into this building type, but for these review purposes, we are calling it a workplace building.
Thank you.
Okay, so yes, that's a perfect segment into this discussion regarding the limitations of EIFS in our regulations. They're limited to buildings that are, building walls that are not visible from a public street or as an accent material. And for the reasons we just discussed, staff does support this mix of materials as shown right here. I will say that the applicants have also had to work closely with the Montcross and the Southern Benedictine representatives, and they have obtained approval of their architectural renderings from them. And they, as you can see, there's some features that are similar to the Abbey properties and the other commercial development in that area.
So it's gonna blend in.
It'll-
All right,
Ish.
It'll complement.
that's fine. Siemens Eye.
So all zoning map amendments require an analysis and compatibility with our comprehensive land use plan. This area is part of the Montcross Small Area Plan and is located in a mixed-use district, as you can see on Star. It's mixed-use adjacent to our thoroughfares. And as I said, higher intensity and higher density uses are envisioned in this area. So we feel that this is compatible with the Montcross Small Area Plan. It also promotes goal number 1, land use, in our comprehensive plan, by building a healthy tax base that will provide a choice in services. Second goal, we feel like it promotes fostering a vibrant economy and really balancing residential growth with employment and commerce. So with that, staff recommends that the planning board recommend approval to the city council. On page 15 of your agenda packet, you'll see 10 proposed conditions. Okay. Those come as a result of working with the applicant to refine this plan, and they range from the areas of relief that we mentioned to watershed permit and other factors that will be in compliance with our land development code.
On that watershed business there, on your paragraph, you've got an acronym that I don't know. A stormwater management BMP area has been planned. I know what that means in some areas, but I'm not sure it's the same thing.
Yes, so yes, it is a best management practice.
That's what I thought it was, okay, thank you.
That can include retention, detention facilities. So with these conditions that are proposed, we ask that the planning board recommend approval to city council and specifically receive this report, public comment, and render a recommendation. Also, that you make the findings that this is reasonable in the public interest and consistent with the comprehensive land use plan.
Good, thank you. Any questions for staff?
Just one about traffic. I'm assuming, and you didn't have to do a traffic study, but trying to turn into the bank on that street with all the traffic coming towards Keener, I would assume it's going to add some traffic there.
Right, it does not, we have looked at that in the land use, it does not trigger traffic impacts, but
It did not reach the threshold as called out in chapter 16 to trigger the requirement for a TIA.
So I do have a question on the proposed width on 85, the buffer. Is there any way we can put the words reduced to 25, or just call that restriction, or whatever we're calling the conditions, instead of just saying reduce it?
okay, that's very good.
Yes, that's a good idea.
When you say impervious, I think, not impervious, opaque, is the word. Opaque buffer, what does that mean? A wall?
It can be a wall, a fence, or a combination of plantings.
Okay, so
And-
any combination thereof, okay.
Yeah. And we do, homework with applicants, believe it will be a combination of those.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
So regarding the neighborhood meeting, were those sent to other adjacent businesses
It
or?
was sent to adjacent property owners, however, the large, this area is
The Abbey.
owned by the Southern Benedictine Society. but-
They didn't oppose, did they?
No, they did not.
Okay, good thing. Any other questions for staff?
I do.
Yeah,
You said that we usually don't allow parking, especially head-in parking on the street, on the frontage road. When you have allowed it, have you asked for a buffer for plantings or anything?
Very good point. We do have the requirement in Chapter 11 that this front yard area parking will have landscaping requirements around it. So
Good.
yes, that
So-
is required.
So when goes for its permit, will you review that landscape planning?
Yes, so the next, if approved through city council, the next step will be a full set of construction plan submittals. That will include the landscape plan with everything from the buffer to parking area trees and the perimeter parking required around the parking spaces. It also includes site lighting, the stormwater details. So yes, if they get approved, then that will be part of our approval process. And they will have to meet all of the requirements of Chapter 11 with the relief in that width of the buffer only.
So what would that look like? Is it how high or, I mean, you're not covering the hotel up, right? I mean, so is
No,
it
it's just the 3 or
small,
4
just to,
feet.
so you don't see the pavement, basically?
Right.
No, actually, it should.
The front of the
it should have the
cars, yeah.
It's
Wait,
about
okay.
4 feet
4 or 5
high,
feet.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
Okay.
I mean, you're allowing them to do something that's not allowed in a lot of other places, so there's got to be a little bit of give on it. Now, the EFS situation, we don't allow it at all.
We allow it in a limited way.
And how much
So,
limit? Is there a percentage?
No, it's if a wall is visible from a public street, it's to be used as an accent material.
Like, that's, the accent would be less than 5%.
We
I
have
mean, it's an
not
accent,
had
it's
it
a tiny amount.
Yeah,
Okay, because there are all means, there are all levels of EFS. There's really cheap, there's really good EFS. Even stuff they call EFS, it's not even EFS anymore. It has more of a stucco than an EFS characteristic. What are your other options? That is allowed.
Yeah, that might be a question for the applicant.
I mean,
I just want to know, it's
Yeah.
it's the least expensive thing to put up besides siding. So my question is, why are we here? We only allow it as a trim, that's a lot, 28% is a lot.
well, also, part of our general discussion, or over the past couple of years, we've recently updated our comprehensive land use plan. And with that comes updating our land development code. I think that this could have been in here when there was more concern about the installation techniques. And we might find that as we update our regulations, we allow more energy efficient materials, maybe with certain conditions.
Well, there's other ways to get energy efficiency other than EFS.
What does the Hampton have? Do you know? Is it,
All
that's
I
on
know for
Abbey
that is
property,
that
too.
it's 51% brick. Okay, and I do want to stand corrected. We have actually called this a flex commercial building. We got there because it's similar to a shop front use. Shop front calls out hotel. So that being said, brick, the other options are brick, cast concrete, stone, marble.
My opinion is it's a big jump down.
What is,
This is a big jump down.
oh, down?
Yeah.
What about the Lofton Apartments? What are they,
They are brick and hardy.
all brick and hardy?
All, yes.
Okay, great. With that, I think we've got to the point where we'll turn it over to the applicant. They can definitely speak more.
Yeah, let's have a discussion with the applicant. That's a good points. Good points.
Yeah, this is the same as in
All right, thank you, staff, appreciate it.
Yeah.
You'd state your name for the record, or we'll get it all logged in over here.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name's Warren Norman. I'm from Rock Hill, and I just went over the fact that we're both owners in this development and play and lead developer. Most of our history has been down in the York County area, developing down that way. It includes hotels and retail. And we've been partners with the Christoffen family in the forest for over 20 years, and that's how our family and our development group has been a part of this, and our partners equally with them in the Abbey. So that's appreciate y'all having us here. I don't know if you want me to address the EFS issue first, or run through,
Well, let's go ahead and see how that's on everybody's mind right now. If you
Sure.
go ahead and let's hash that out.
You know, we have a hotel in Rock Hill that's all brick. Obviously, while we don't own any of the Hampton Inn that's here in town, that's all brick or the majority brick on that one. To be honest with you, our preference would be mostly masonry. If you look into either developments that we've done, we hold on to our properties. We're not flip developers. We don't build it as cheap as possible and then turn around and sell it or get rid of it. Our history is holding on to our properties, and we tend to put more money into them because of that, or treat them that way. This particular project, we were curious how far we needed to go in terms of the Abbey's desire to have it match fully what you see in the Hampton Inn. I think if costs were not a complete issue in terms of actually doing this project or not doing this project, our desire would be to go all brick. When you accent brick, you are able to do it a lot more cost effectively than if you were to go all brick. Because of the weight, you end up with heavier footings. If in the current cost environment, we are, frankly, it just kills the project. The cost of doing an all brick hotel in today's world is just astronomically higher. So that's the main reason. The last hotel we did about the same amount of EFS. We certainly could apply, where you can see what it looks like, and we feel like the amount of increased cost and increased architecture that we've put on this, and the Abbey agrees, is sufficient to tie it into the existing architecture that is there now. To be honest with you, there's not a lot of other options. It's like she was mentioning, obviously marble doesn't work, but you go either cast in stone or brick, and I think the only realistic option would be to either add more brick on here or to go all brick as opposed to the EFS. And I think the percentages, the percentages were on here.
Page 14.
So we're still heavier brick than anything else at 39% with 29% EFS, and then stone accents throughout.
Something we have done is the stencil brick stencil, which is another option.
Yeah.
What was that?
Say again.
So they have EFS options that essentially look like brick. That is something that, if you look at most hotels or most home twos, it's rare to find any much brick accent on hotels, period. Obviously, y'all's is a lot different here in town, but most hotels, if you drive up and down the interstate and you're pulling up to them, they're mostly all EFS or mostly EFS. If you look at the stock set of plans that Home2 or Hilton provides, they're pretty much all EFS. It's rare to see even this amount of brick on something. You have accents, stone accents at the bottom, but you don't usually add this much. But Lane makes a good point. There are options relative to the look of it that you still do EFS that actually looks like brick, and that I don't know if we have.
We looked at that. I think the overall look of it wasn't what we were going for. So it wouldn't be ideal, but it's a secondary option.
In terms of how it looked, that was kind of looked hot.
Yeah.
So if you put it up against real brick, you can kind of tell. So it kind of, if I'm hearing you right, I don't remember seeing any site plan or renderings on it, but I guess the fear is you put regular brick up and then you put EFS that is made to look like brick, you can pretty easily tell that it's not brick. So it kind of looks cheap. So you might as well just go with straight EFS.
Now, are there grades of this EFS material, or is it one size fits all?
No, there's definitely different materials and different grades, but not, we would do I won't say the highest grade, but typically speaking, we end up choosing materials, especially in the exterior, that are.
It's certainly not in your interest to have the hotel look cheap,
No.
is it?
No.
Nor is it in the interest of the city of Belmont.
Or the Abbey. I think the Abbey's pretty picky about.
Absolutely, and we were curious about that, to be honest with you. We knew going in, we've stopped 2 projects due to cost in other areas, one up in Statesville, one down in Myrtle Beach, that we just, it's just I mean, I don't know how many of you are in the construction business or close, but it's a pretty crazy cost environment right now. We've seen 25, 30%. That's not y'all's problem. It's just, that's just the reality of where we are today. This one we're excited about because, you know, the numbers are strong, and we've been working on this for close to 2 years now. And but as it relates to the look, totally agree with you. I think we were curious how far and where that balance was going to be around getting the project as a go project, combined with what we knew and frankly what we wanted in terms of the look of this hotel. So, but no, it certainly is not in our best interest to build a cheap hotel. Like I said, we hold on to them. We're not selling this. We intend to be owners. As the Abbey said, they're long-term players. They have a 500-year plan. I said, we're long-term players. We're not that long-term players. So, you know,
Well, then it sounds like it would be in your best interest then to put some higher grade of ephes on the exterior, based on what you just said.
yeah, and I think we're going to the highest, I don't want to speak out of turn, in terms of the highest grade of ephes as it relates to the installation of the material. We're already there or will be there. I think it becomes, all right, the look of it is the look of it as you see, versus trying to do a stamped ephes that tries to make it look like brick. And I'm not, you know, I don't know that we did architectural renderings to actually look at that, or if we went and looked at, we could certainly.
I mean, it's just kind of looking at, trying to find a breaking point. There's really just nowhere kind of sectioned out of the whole section. And you go to your point, as far as higher class of ephes. So ephes, I mean, in our minds, the class is going to be the thickness of your insulation, which gets you that energy efficiency. So after that, you then go into the vapor barrier, and then it's just a thin layer of ephes on top of it. So the actual ephes itself, there isn't other than the finish of it, which is what we kind of look after, make sure it's a solid finish and one that's going to last. But that's about as high a class as you get with it.
And on that note, is the main concern quality or appearance?
That's a good question. And also, you do this, next guy comes down and builds next to it, why can't I do it? I mean, you're setting a precedent. And are you going to allow this to go anywhere throughout the city?
Well, I would say that we do look at
I don't
this on a
think you want to.
case-by-case basis with their own merits. If there's some appearance factor, then maybe there's some way we can work together to, on the front facade, to increase a certain material or other conditions as appropriate.
Yeah, I'll say if it's appearance, I mean, we are comfortable with the way that this is looking now. The Abbey's comfortable with it, Christophers are comfortable, we're all comfortable with where, you know, the renderings are right now. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't work through other options, you know, within the cost situation that we're having to deal with, to see what else is out there. I mean, in terms of the quality, you know, way back 20 years ago, stucco as it was called, I think, Mr. Heaven, I mean, that's what it used to be called. There were a lot of problems with that, even dating 30 years ago, and you had a lot of issues with that. I think, you know, we're certainly comfortable with ephes as a product in terms of its longevity. It's higher up on the building, so you don't really have the same wear and tear issues given the, you know, the materials that you used to, what was known as stucco, which had a lot of problems of peeling off, and you had to paint it and this type thing. So I think the material itself, we're very comfortable with from that standpoint.
I think if you look at these pictures too, you can see the back is already the majority of it, where you're doing like a stone, is that what this front?
Yeah, what's the gray?
The back is gonna all be the ephes.
What's the
This.
brownish material, the lighter brown or the?
This is some kind of masonry
This is
stone,
that- that's what that
but
is.
only on the front.
Yeah, I wish we had those. Yeah, this is kind of not as good of a
Yeah, it's not a good.
picture to actually, I'll encourage you to zoom in and look at the actual, the closer pictures give you a better representation.
See what I'm saying here? There's a dressier front already compared to the back. And this is the back that would face the interstate.
It's just hunched over.
Yeah, the articulation of the windows.
I mean, it just looks like a motel.
Yeah. I'm trying to temper my architect instincts.
I mean, there's a lot of things that we've already done that, I mean, probably on the outside, we should have brought a typical home too to take a look at. I know that's sort of irrelevant.
I stayed in a one or two not too long ago. You gonna be, is it gonna be wood construction?
No. Are we doing, no, we're doing block and plank,
Okay.
which, you know, again, I mean, it's rare to find a block and plank hotel being built anywhere right now, literally anywhere. But even these accents right here that obviously mirror the Abbey's architecture and these type things, these are not cheap. I mean, we are, if you really zoom in on this, we are putting significant dollars into an increased, you know, the way that this looks. I mean, it's,
Do you know whose
I know this
cast
is
stone
not-
you're thinking about using?
I do not, because we have not bid this out yet. We are, you know, we're at the point where we wanted to get through the buffer, this issue before we've actually cut loose. We've used,
We've used a lot of concrete products in the past.
that was Mr. Hartley. You know, some,
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm tempering so I'm trained as an architect, I work as a developer. I'm tempering my two different sides. I understand your constraints from a budgetary standpoint, because I agree with you, the market's crazy right now. So I understand that. And I do appreciate the fact that you've put considerably more brick on this product in masonry than most of your contemporaries have. I acknowledge that. I think my architect's hat comes into play where it's like, where I appreciate the fact that you've done that. Where you haven't done that, it looks kind of like a generic hotel, right? It's just punched openings and kind of lines, that horizontals and verticals, and the windows are just kind of rectangles. And so it's like this stark contrast between one articulation and then kind of everything else, where the ephes is. I mean, the ephes is pretty unarticulated. So, and that's kind of the nature of ephes. It's just homogeneous stucco on top of styrofoam. And that's really what it is. And I understand budgetarily why you're doing it, and I understand that is kind of the standard in the industry, and that's like, so I get all that. So I'm sensitive to it. I think that you've actually done more than would be required of you in most other jurisdictions. And so I commend you on that.
I feel a butt coming.
I mean, where the ephes is, I think that from a practical standpoint, the architect in me, I can tell you that is going to be a pretty generic and I would say not so attractive facade. Because there is very little there but ephes in square and rectangular windows and air conditioners. So if you're relying on the ephes to be the thing that really helps that facade do anything, I think the ephes is going to fall flat, because the ephes is not made to do that. I think the brick at the base is made to do that. I don't know how you solve that. I think that, you know, maybe there's a way of kind of, and actually, now that I'm looking at that elevation, there's brick on the left hand of that elevation, but in the models, there's not brick on it.
well, so one thing I was
Is that
going to
the
point
bay
out
that
is,
sticks out?
yeah, there's more ephes on
Yes, yeah.
on the back side of the hotel, obviously, than on the side that faces what people are going to come in. Obviously, people that park in the back are going to see that, but the point is to dress up the front. The other thing as it relates to some of the lines and some of the things you're referencing there is we do battle's not the right word, we have to balance between Hilton's requirements and their consistency of their brand with designing something that is fitting within this.
First time I heard the word Hilton tonight.
Already unique.
Did I miss
but,
something?
No, Hilton.
It's a sub-brand of Hilton.
Yeah, it's a brand Hilton.
See, I just didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're all.
It's okay. A lot of things I don't know.
So they have approval rights on this. That was one of the things we went through site
Suites by
plan.
Hilton.
You know, site plan that did not wrap all the way around the building, and they denied that. So we knew that, not to jump issues, but that was something that is just a non-starter. If we couldn't get around the building, there's also fire issues associated with that. We tried to get, a site plan that worked without touching that buffer, and the bottom line is we just couldn't. But, back to this, I think, like I said, we tried to dress up the front that people are gonna see more so than the back. So I don't know what the percentages are on this front side. I would be curious, I should have that number, but I don't. I'm curious what it is, just eyeing it. I certainly think it is probably much less than the 29% on the collective whole. So if you,
Well, it has to be.
Yeah,
yeah, it would have to be.
so you don't have that metal either. How much of this will be visible from the interstate? That backside is kind of important for that perspective. Top 2 floors, top 3 floors?
Depends on the vegetation that remains, probably.
How much
Because those
trees?
trees are probably gonna be 40 feet tall at least.
And
People on
an
the road,
elevation
keep
there?
their eyes on the road.
Yeah, well,
You'll probably see the outlines of it.
So I do have a question, and it's back to the city. So the ephes, what is allowed by code? Is it, you said, was it for decorative type? Is that what, I'm just not sure what's allowed.
Yes, it's to building, you can use it on building walls that are not visible from a public street, and you can use it as, where it is visible from a public street is limited to an accent material only.
Which that's a huge jump, I think, if that's what.
Take the money from the front. I mean,
This is a way to do it.
yeah, 'cause because you're putting a lot of brick in the back, it gets less visibility. I mean, that base course could be reduced down, take the money, then bring it back, and put it on the front somehow. Because, if we're talking about the visibility from the street, that's gonna be the primary facade is gonna be the one that faces Holly Ave. It's not gonna be the one that faces the highway.
See, now, so there's no relief.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
It's-
So it's just a flat wall, and that's the part of it. And since there's no texture, there's no articulation of that wall. I mean, it's
And these
inherent
trim
with being a
pieces are
hotel.
the same.
I mean, that's,
Yeah.
The load issue becomes an issue in loading one wall up with all masonry. I mean, I know that from looking at this in the past and analyzing costs between
See,
what
they
it's gonna
just
be
did
to
that
completely load it
stone,
up.
like the front, and
I
just
mean, it
this one
affects the
little
footings,
spot
and
back.
so, not to say we can't
Yeah, no, it's
analyze that, but just knowing that in the past, that is,
So if you were to take some off the start on the rear
I
and
think
make a
that's
pier,
a-
put it on the
That's
on
gonna
the
probably
front,
be a
you might have to rechange
adding
your
issue.
footings in
They want the whole
Correct.
base.
the front as opposed to not
But I mean, they're negotiable.
quite so strenuous or strong in the back.
Within 500 years. Yeah,
Because ultimately, you're dealing with your architect.
yeah.
So I can't get too excited about it.
I just wondered.
So is that the Hampton in Belmont you're looking at?
Versus this.
Just to not look at that since the question.
Yeah, that's the Hampton.
Which one?
The one in the middle.
One in the middle?
Yeah.
So what's the material there?
I would assume stuff.
that's
Yeah.
stucco ephes.
Yeah, I bet that's Eva's.
Same thing.
The
We
same
also had to
thing?
go through a similar process for approval.
So we allowed it up there, even though it's an accent?
I'm not.
It's also not on a. if you-
Visible
It's not
from the
visible
street.
from the street. That is, you have to really kind of go in there and find it.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, that's true, that's a true statement.
Yeah.
But that will, I don't want to say this definitively, but I'm pretty sure that hotel is one
Wonder how it
architectural
blends with the
award for
Chick-fil-A.
the building, for the way that it looks. So it's, you mentioned it's atypical.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It is.
I guess I'll reiterate that we are already at a above cost atypical situation.
One flat wall.
Because Holly's kind of tucked back here too, you know, it's not right on Wilson
I
Boulevard.
agree.
I know, I'm just trying to think.
I know, I agree. I'm struggling with it.
Oh, I am too,
because,
that's why.
you know, it's one of those things where I agree. It's like where when you allow it, then it just opens kind of the door. So I'm just trying to, and I understand.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that it opens the door.
Um,
I don't think it sets a precedent because of the location of this thing and the fact that we've got to go through another entity to get them to buy in to allow us to do this in the first place sets this apart. So that, because we have to have the okay from the Benedictine crowd, if I'm stating that correctly, someone who comes to want to build something in another part of Belmont, say, we did our, oh, wait a minute, we had other restrictions on this that don't apply here, so we're not going to accept that argument. Next question. It's as simple as that. You're done.
Every property is unique. This isn't a court of law, this is.
That's right.
I agree with you, but we just pulled up the Hampton Inn to look at. So, I mean,
Well, just for reference, we could say,
No, I'm just saying, like,
could
from a
say,
practical
perhaps-
standpoint, I understand what you're trying to say, but you naturally you look to see if it's been done before. So, I mean, I get that. I also understand that, 90%, if not more, of all hotels are this.
And there's at least 50% of it.
Or what?
Are Ethos.
Yeah, but they're not how we have designed this. I mean,
No, I'm not trying to insult.
No, I'm just saying that-
I'm just saying that ephes is the predominant material that
Right.
you will see on most facades of a hotel.
but percentage-wise, if you went and looked at that, take out in a municipality similar to here, so take out downtown Charlotte or downtown New York,
Yeah.
you're gonna see the percentages from 29 up to probably 90, 80, 90%. They're gonna have accent bands on the bottom, no curve. I feel like this discussion is moving more towards aesthetically, what is this hotel gonna look like?
Well, it's-
I'll just definitively say, I'm highly, highly confident our name is behind this, the Abbey's name is behind this. They have approved this. This hotel is going to look fantastic, in our
I don't
opinion.
see the front.
We've tried to put our best
That's
foot
gotta be
forward
the
to
start.
put accents on this
Where's that?
and then some.
No, that's the back.
That's the back.
Which equate to dollars that are much higher than most hotels you're gonna see, so.
All right, so if we were to take all that, this accent you've got on the backside of the thing, which is going to be blocked from the view of the highway by the
Screening buffer.
buffer that you're going to put up, and we're to make that all your ephes, just have no clue whether this is even feasible or not, and we're to make that second floor on the front side that you've made the first floor, that material. Then you've still got the balance, but you may have to make your footings on the front side, I keep wanting to say bow. On the front side, you're gonna have to make them strong. Is that feasible?
Feasible, I don't know that I would necessarily agree that I would want to pull that much of the look off of the backside of the hotel.
No, I'm just
honestly.
asking, I'm
Yeah.
trying to reach a compromise here.
Sure. I mean, I think if I felt like the front side of this, just take cost off the table, I think we would probably want to assess trying to figure out what the front side of the ephes is without removing. I certainly would not want to remove. I think, Ms. Cunningham, your question was what's going to be seen from the interstate. We certainly are going to want to see. We're going to want this accent point, which is going to be a focal point to be seen from the interstate because it sets it apart.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
so I think from a.
But that's about all they'll see.
That's right, and so we would want to keep that feature. I feel like we would want to keep that feature as it relates to this down here.
Yeah.
You see my, yeah, you see. In terms of removing brick,
I mean, the main advantage you have there is you try to keep a brick kind of water table down low, keep anything from splashing onto your building. So if you have ephes down low, it kind of ruins it at that point. But then you also, so that goes up to the second story. And so when you walk up to a building, your first look is right in front of you as a visitor. So you're going to see that brick versus looking
Sure.
up. You're not.
Right, I agree, okay.
Maybe, I don't, maybe just have a different perspective. I'm not an architect, I'm a lawyer. But I don't know anything about architecture and I don't know anything about aesthetics. And maybe this wouldn't be how I would build a hotel, but if I want to build a hotel that looks the way I want, I'm free to raise a couple $1 million and fill out a permit, and then I can build a hotel exactly how I want to. And I'm just not sure it's my place to tell you how, it's certainly my place to make sure that we conform with the zoning code and, the conditions that have been proposed, but, if I want to build a hotel a different way, I'm not sure, if everything here is gone through Southern Benedictine, has, gone through the city staff, it might not be the way I want to build it, but I don't see how I can tell you, I want you to build a hotel this way, I want you to build it, I want you to put a column here, I want you to put an archway here. That's not my job, and so I just don't know what this is accomplishing.
I think the question framed quite simply is that we're being asked to grant them some leniency on the EFS requirement. And so if we're going to grant them some leniency on the EFS requirement, then, and essentially our requirement is that we only allow very little EFS on the front facade on the public street. How far do we want to go with that? And so that in a nutshell is what it is.
Well, then let's kind of wrap this thing up here a little bit, if we can. I appreciate the concerns that you've raised, understand them, and I'm not the right brain guy here. I'm a left brain guy, so this aesthetics is not my bailiwick either. But procedure and format is. So in keeping with those, let's see if we can't come to some consensus. Is there a motion to be made to revise the amount of EFS allowed as presented in the staff proposal, from what it is now and from the manner in which it was applied to the drawings? Hearing none, we'll move on to if there's any other questions of the applicants regarding this project.
State that motion again.
I wanted to know if someone wanted to move to change the amount.
Change the amount?
Change the.
I move.
All right, well, put your motion in the form of a motion that we can succinctly
Because the way you
understand.
asked it, I wasn't sure which
Yeah, I'm
one
looking
you
for somebody to put something on the table we can vote on. We've had the discussion, so now we need to vote.
He's going to ask for motions, he's not going to make any.
I'm asking for
Right.
motions. So I need to
I move
know.
that they come back
Yes,
with revised elevations that reduces the amount of EFS that's on the front of the building.
by a certain amount?
Nope.
Oh.
He may come back with 3 or 4, and gives us different options.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion that the developer come back with different options, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3. Opposed?
Four. I said-
Oh, I'm sorry, 4. Opposed? All right. The vote is a tie, so we will bring it back. Motion carried. I will vote with the majority. Let's take a look at, staff, I need some guidance here on what we can do regarding the rest of the options before us.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity on the motion. It started out where I believe it said it was 4 to 4,
Well,
but then you
I-
changed your vote to,
I didn't vote initially, I waited to see, I said I will vote with the majority, well, what was
so
the
then...
even majority?
Yeah, so it's 4-3.
So it's
or 5-3.
5-3.
4-3. 5-3.
1, 2,
No, there's only 8
3, 4,
votes.
5.
5.
1, 2, 3.
5 to 3.
5-3.
5-3, correct.
What's it?
All right, so the question is, do we want to table the rest of this discussion on the other options until these things come back to us again with the other options? Or should we move ahead with what we got so far? I need some guidance from staff on this as far as procedurally.
Well, what you've done is, you made a motion that they come back with additional architectural renderings for the board to consider.
That would be option number 2, which is approve with
Right.
conditions, approve with, well, this would be an additional condition, right? This would be condition number 11.
Okay, well, maybe I need some clarity on the motion. So typically, when a board makes a motion to ask that the board come back with something, they're continuing the item to a future meeting, so additional information can be brought back. And then the additional information is brought back, then you reach your recommendation and it can move on if satisfied.
Okay.
So this is a little unusual because we sort of stopped in the middle.
Well,
of the
that's why
presentation.
I wanted to go back to look at well, that's one
The
way
other
you get things
Right.
decided. You use the procedures
Right.
to go through this thing, and we just did that. So if we could go back to the slide that gives us our options as the board, I'd like to look at that, please.
Okay, your options of how to, I'm sorry, the computer
Oh,
is
is it? Well, if you
rebooting or
all right.
doing something
Well, I
odd.
think that, as I recall, it was approve as submitted,
Right.
approve with conditions, and then, or reject, I guess. was the-
So what you have the ability to do is, this, you're going to make a recommendation. So you could recommend to the council, approve as presented.
Right.
You can recommend that they approve as, with modified conditions or added conditions. Or you can recommend disapproval. Another option is ask that the case be continued, so you can reach a recommendation
Right.
where additional information is brought
Okay,
back.
good. I didn't see that one on the,
Are we
Yeah,
in
so-
favor of everything except for the materials? Are we in favor of all the other conditions that are in place?
well, we haven't gotten to that yet. We haven't decided that yet.
Get to each one individually.
So, I
It would
think,
be,
yes, sir.
well, I'm respectful of you guys' process, I don't want, but it would certainly be helpful to understand the other conditions as well from our standpoint.
Everything else.
So everything will be addressed.
So
All right.
continue the discussion and then,
Well, let's, for the sake of the applicant, let's let him know what we think about these rest of these things, so he has a sense of that.
Yes,
So I got you, I appreciate that. And then we can vote on the recommendation, or at least one of the recommendations that's available to us as presented by staff. All right, so the motion has been made and carried that the applicant return with additional information for this planning board in order for us to make a decision and recommendation to the city council. So, having decided that, in the interest of providing the applicant guidance on the other conditions that he has submitted, is there any further discussion on the conditions that were raised 1 through 10? And of course, one of those may have to be modified, because it's, I'm not sure which one had to do with the ethos, but,
Number 9.
number which?
I think number 9 is the closest one.
Yes, number 1 states that the architectural mix of materials will be as proposed.
All right.
As does number
All
9.
right, all right, so number 9 is in abeyance, based on our motion. All right, so, is there comment from the planning and zoning board members regarding conditions 1 through 8 and number 10? Any concerns with any of those?
Could I ask the question of when we did the Lofton Apartments, did we not restrict how many floors tall it could be and how many floors is there?
Actually, Lofton 1 is 3 stories and Lofton Lofton 2 is 4 stories.
Okay, so we agreed to allow 2 to be 4 stories.
Yep.
Thought I remember something there.
Okay,
Thank you.
I just have a quick question.
yeah.
I'm just more of curiosity. What's the shared access driveway easement? It seems like you have
So.
straightforward. in
As
and
we
out.
worked through the site-specific development plan and looked at the different proposed layouts of their parking lot, and they came back to us with the west drive,
This one there.
the west entrance, to encompass 2 lots, basically. So even though they're owned all under ownership right now, we feel it's a best practice and required to record an easement so that the future land
Because
use
lot
that's
7 is
located
not
there-
actually part of this development.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So,
That's
it
fine.
brings up condition number 2, that a recombination plat will be required, and so yes, they are going to be providing part of that. It's a shared driveway, it's our practice, so staff to require that easement.
Okay.
Good.
So number 10, is that valid for a period of 12 months after approval by the city council?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we don't have to follow.
Okay. Any other concerns about items 1 through 8 or 10?
On 5, who determines a healthy tree?
Well,
An arborist.
Arborist before.
Yeah, they would bring in
Okay.
an arborist to assess the health of the trees.
That's a pretty
Okay,
fancy
we
tree.
good?
It's called healthy.
Some of my favorites.
No.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion to convey to the applicant that conditions 1 through 8 and 10 at the present time are acceptable to the Planning and Zoning Board. Condition number 9 is not, and that's the one you're going to have to come back on.
I think we have another question.
Excuse me.
Yes.
If the applicant would like to, before you go into a motion, address the board.
Certainly.
Okay, so just wanted to understand the process, because timing is important here relative to this, on where we are now and where we want to be in terms of getting this out of the ground. So I get the EFS situation. And is this a situation where we continue on the same path relative to going to city council for final approval? Or does this delay this a month for us to come back? And I guess the question on the table is, I certainly don't mind going back and doing some research on where we are relative to loads and where we are with, if this is accomplishable to be able to move EFS off the back and put more brick on the front. That's not a concern or a problem. What I am somewhat concerned about is the time delay that this causes in the whole project, given where we are. Because there's, cutting loose on full architectural drawings and all the things that we have to do on our end. So I didn't know if there was a way, if the buck stops here before it moves forward until this EFS question is answered, or if there's a way to have the train continue down the tracks while at the same time addressing you guys' concern.
Well, my understanding of the rules is that we can make a recommendation to the city council, and the city council doesn't have to agree with that at all. City council will say, we hear that you wanted to hear more about the loading of the EFS, and that you had recommended the thing be tabled until such time.
Well, that I have a question for the city. I understand if we say yes or no, then the recommendation goes on up to the city council, they can do whatever they want with it. But if we say, come back, what happens then?
Normally, in this case, if you were going to approve everything but the one condition, you'd go ahead and approve
1 through 8.
8 and 10 and deny the request for, or recommend that the request for leniency on EFS be denied.
I think we should go up or down and let city council do what they will with it.
Well, that's what the,
But that's a motion with an additional, with a condition.
and that's one of our options.
Yeah.
That's one of our options.
Because they're asking for 10 conditions, we're putting 9 on it, we're rejecting the other one. But they can take that to city council, and they may say they're fine with it, right?
Okay.
I think that's fair to them, because the city council is going to make the final decision anyway. We can go on record that we were against number 9 and would like to see more.
And I think the proposal to the city council will clarify why it was that we rejected number 9, which we already have done.
And let them decide.
Yeah.
And then they can either,
Without seeing a better option. My concern is they're not going to see the better option. They're not going to come in and propose a better option.
No.
That's what I'm concerned with, is, you go to the city council with this as is.
Well, but it doesn't, things can change between now and city council.
That was
I've
actually going to
seen
be what I get to, is because between now and city council, there can be an iterative process between city staff, the applicant, and then when it gets to city council, so that it's not a black and white decision. So,
in other words, if you guys are agreeable to come up with some other potential solutions for us,
Sure, I'm
get it before the city council, then
I'm committed to whatever, I'm not just not gonna do it. I can't say that we will absolutely come back and say, okay, we didn't look at it at all and just continue on. I mean, we would be committed to assessing this
Okay.
in terms of a cost and providing that report back to this body either in person, if the train keeps going, I don't mind coming back and saying, hey, here's what we found out, even if it's in an informal situation, given the question that was raised. So I'm not gonna just not do it but I don't know what the answer is. So I think
Well, we understand that.
it's gonna take some vetting to understand
All right.
why we
Certainly,
are,
that's,
you know.
there's give and take between now and the council meeting.
Sure.
I've seen
And
it.
I think we can talk about that, the scheduling of the agenda at the council meeting as well. I mean, somebody controls that. And I think that in good faith, they'll come forward with some recommendations. If there is none, then maybe it just won't get on the council agenda. I don't know the answer to that.
No, it will, if a recommendation from this board
Yeah.
is to move forward at the council with a recommendation not to support condition 9, the request for release regarding EFS, then that would be scheduled for the next council
Okay.
meeting. If we would share all the thoughts and comments from the planning board.
Right.
And so it would be in their best interest to
You can't.
show.
Can't look at this and say,
that
oh, I'm
they-
To have met their,
It makes no sense.
I understand.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Well, let me ask the city attorney then. The motion has been made and carried. To do what we have talked about doing, how do we need to get there from here, from where we are
Well,
now?
the first motion that was made and approved,
Right,
voted
right,
on,
yes.
was to reject the EFS.
Well, I thought
Can you
that
read those?
it was worded to continue, to have them come back.
Right.
You could rescind that action. If you now want to make another motion.
Well, can you read exactly what we said?
To request the applicant to come back with a reduced amount of use on the architecture.
We can amend that to say that the applicant come back with revised to the planning staff, because that's where it's going to go.
I'd rather go back
rescind that.
and vote. I think we should have two separate motions, 1 through 8 and 10, and then 9.
Just so you know,
That's
one sub
Yeah.
4, one sub 4 needs to be addressed as well, because that implicitly approves the mix of materials.
Chair is open to receive any motion.
Well, can anyone move it, rescind, or does it have to be the movement?
Somebody that voted for.
Anybody who voted for can move to rescind.
Move to rescind. I move to rescind.
All right, is there a second?
I have faith in city
Is there a second?
staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion previously approved has been rescinded by board action. Chair is now open to receive motions regarding the process forward. I defer to the gentleman at the end of the table there who have
All right, so,
initiated this.
so I guess I don't quite know how to do this, because what I'd like to do is move to approve items 1, sub 1, 2, and 3. I don't know how you do that.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Well, no, I don't.
It's bullet point.
1, 2, and 3, yeah.
So I'd move to approve 1 with bullet points 1 through 3, not number 4.
Right.
Approve 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 10.
Not number 4,
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
not
Not
number
the
4.
fourth bullet point?
Oh,
The
okay.
architectural mix.
Says proposed.
Any further
Okay.
discussion?
I see.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion's carried. Is there a follow-on motion regarding item number 4, 1, sub-bullet 4 and 9?
I would move to approve, in addition to what we've already approved, I would move to also approve proposed condition 1, bullet point 4, and proposed condition 9.
You mean not approve them?
No, I move to approve.
Thought we voted.
Oh, no, we voted to approve all the other ones.
So we didn't, now you're voting.
So you want to approve the EFS in the way it's presented?
Well, I withdraw the motion. Somebody can phrase it in the negative.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
oh.
So if we go with these what we're presenting here and vote on it, then the minutes will reflect our discussion around sub-bullet 4 and number 9, right, to the city council?
Everything except sub-bullet.
Well, I think it,
nine. And
there
then
should be a follow-up motion
But
with
the
it.
record will contain your discussion about.
Why we didn't.
What your expectation is about the developer and staff working together to come up with a proposal for the city council. I don't really think you need a motion. You got the motion.
And a second.
Did it already.
Those, they're not in the.
This is just a recommendation from staff, right? So we chose, we wanted to do what we just did.
Yeah.
Right,
It's a lot of site.
right.
To the city council with some verbiage in your minutes, they'll read your minutes.
You can move it one, simple at 4 and 9.
I won't.
That not be approved, or be approved following,
It's
All for
not
naught.
approved by what you just did.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not approved.
all right, we got it.
This is just recommendation from staff, we chose to.
Okay.
All right, I mean, well, a couple questions though, then. All right, I mean, I just want to, for the record, I would have approved those other conditions as well.
Understood.
Secondly, what do we do with the consistency statement now? Do we move to find that I would move to find that the conditions that were approved are a reasonable request in the public interest and consistent with the comprehensive land use plan because they promote goal number 1, land use by contributing to a balanced approach to land use by allowing a mix of land uses, and they promote goal number 4, community character, by allowing a legal land use if conditions that help preserve community character are met.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion's carried. And just to wrap up here, it's been a little long. We all understand what we're trying to do here. We appreciate your concerns and your constraints, what you've had to work with. But what this board is asking you to do is to come back with some alternative designs so that the Front Street looks a little bit different from what it does now.
Sure, and just, I was gonna ask about that, if it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not practically to understand, exactly what everybody's looking for. I mean, if I'm hearing this right, it is, the concern across the board is the fact that on Hawley Avenue and on the east elevations, which is facing Chick-fil-A, which is what people are gonna see,
Yeah.
that the bottom line is, it looks like too much ethos, which in the board's mind doesn't look good, so we want to see alternative
Yes.
visual architectural changes to that because of the way that the ethos.
We want to see them proposed to the staff
To the city council.
and thence to the city councils.
Okay.
Great.
Council may say they're fine with that, right?
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your indulging us.
No, absolutely, I appreciate you guys.
And vice versa, I guess, right? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, where the heck does it go? There we go. Yeah, these meetings that are supposed to be short never are.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good
Thank you.
Appreciate you, thank you.
Keep plowing on.
Okay, by the way, when you get to this next one, you can just say, here's number goal 1 and 2. and I'll give it-
There's more of
As
this.
far as I'm concerned.
I want to be.
I know, it's just, it'll be written in there.
Yeah.
All right, next thing is
It doesn't cost any money.
TA 2018-05, amend chapter 2, 5, and 6 regarding land development code to regulate electronic gaming operations. Staff,
All right, tonight we have before you text amendment 2018.05 regarding electronic gaming operations. This is a request to amend chapters 2, 5, and 6 of the Belmont Land Development Code to provide regulations for electronic gaming operations, including games of skill. Now, this land use is one that's been a hot topic for the past several years. You might know this kind of business by internet sweepstakes or pot of gold. The operators of these businesses have found ways to operate within the gray area of the law. State laws have been updated, and now we are proposing this text amendment to stay consistent with state law and to address and incorporate provisions into our regulations that address this land use. Right now, we have the definition for this type of use as gambling, sweepstakes / games of chance establishment. Staff is proposing an amendment to Chapter 2, whereby we remove the old definition and incorporate a new definition found on page 31 of your staff report. So basically, any business that has a computer terminal, any sort of electronic table, gaming terminal, they're starting to show like fishing games, any of these are covered under this definition. The amendment to Chapter 5, in the permitted uses table of the highway commercial district, this will remain a permitted land use in Chapter 5. We strike out the old land use and incorporate electronic gaming operation with the notation that there are additional conditions in Chapter 6 that would apply.
So does this definition come from the state law? Is that what you're saying?
So we've performed extensive research, compared several jurisdictions, and we came up with this definition that we feel incorporates the best of the definitions that we've seen. I feel like it's comprehensive and can take into account any changes that occur in the industry. So then moving on to the meat of this text amendment.
Just a question, do we have any now?
Luckily, we do not have any right now, but there have been 2 specific applicants that have come in, and I don't know why they've not opened. They could open last month under our current regulations. So, the proposed amendment to Chapter 6.28 is where we incorporate additional requirements. These include a 500-foot separation from similar establishments, bars, places of worship, parks or playgrounds, any type of school or college, the residential zoning districts, and residential uses. It goes on to define how we make this measurement, and we feel like in the range of our research, the separation has ranged from 250 feet up to 1,500 feet. So this is a good separation. It's right in the middle of that. So 500 feet from any of these sort of protected land uses, we feel will allow a permitted use and keep with our community character. We also go on to propose specific hours of operation, which is from 9 a.m. until midnight. And third, we limit the age of people patronizing these establishments, and where only people 18 years of age or older.
So the ones that could have already opened, do they meet number A?
No.
So where could they end up if you take the 500 and you start going from schools and
Yes,
all
it
that?
does
Where
limit
that
their
go?
locations to, like for one example is this Holly Avenue, near that Walmart is one location that, like one area that they could locate. So there are properties that meet this requirement.
But they're not many, right?
It would be limiting.
What about an option to limit alcohol served establishment like that?
Well, we did look at that. I think that the current ABC permitting would take care of that.
Take care of it, okay. So it's not needed.
Is there a reason why, if you can go up to 1,500 feet, why is it going in the middle? If there's no like redeeming value for these places?
Yeah, well, we generally try to regulate to the least amount possible. So we feel like these regulations meet the needs of our community specifically. We feel like 500 feet is not too extreme and not too small. So, you know, other places that have that 15, that have probably different map, you know,
Or Wyoming.
scenarios, but for our community, we look at this intensely, and we find that that number meets the needs.
Because specifically, it's only in highway commercial where it's
Correct,
allowed.
yeah.
So essentially, it's along the Wilkinson Boulevard corridor.
Yes.
That's, I mean, there really won't have any other highway commercial anywhere.
Right, and there's a little stretch that goes up Main Street.
Yeah, so,
Any other questions for staff?
I just have a couple on the 6.2.8, A, B, and C. I would eliminate the descriptors, location, hours of operation, age restrictions. I understand what you're doing, but if you look at the other sections or subsections of Chapter 6, none of them have those headers, so I'd make it like the rest of the subsections in the. And then I might, on C, I might add at the end of electronic gaming establishments. So it reads, persons under the age of 18 are prohibited within the premises of electronic gaming establishments. It's probably, it just makes it a little bit more
Nail it.
clear. And then, as I indicated, obviously, since we're sticking 6.2.8 in the middle of Chapter 6, I'd like something to reflect that what was 6.2.8 is now 6.2.9, what was 6.2.9 is now 6.2.10, all renumbered all the way through 6.2.25 is now 6.2.26.
Okay. Yes, I did make sure to include that on my slide, and I went to make sure that the full text of these chapters that we will include, I have highlighted those in red as highlighted changes.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
Okay.
See, right. Yes, full text amendment includes renumbering.
Okay, great.
All right. Any other questions for staff?
Here, and so with all, with all amendments, we do ask that you make the required findings. It's reasonable request in the public interest, and it promotes the goals of the comprehensive land use plan as stated.
Chair will entertain motions to approve these changes and to document them as being in conformance with the comprehensive land use plan.
I will move to approve the proposed amendments as presented.
Is there a second?
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion's carried.
I will move to find that this is a reasonable request in the public interest and consistent with the comprehensive land use plan by promoting goals 1 and 4 of the comprehensive land use plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion's carried.
Before we move on, I would like to, the previous consistency motion for the hotel, I read off the wrong one. I'd like to amend that motion that it's consistent with goals 1 and 2
Yeah, 1
rather
and
than 1 and 4.
All right. If you'd make that editorial change, I think that's fine.
Okay, all right.
Next item on the agenda is another change to the lighting ordinance.
Why do, we've got 20805 and 20807, what happened to 20806?
It's either gone through or it's in the process, so the numbering's right. Yes.
Okay.
Some sections of the ordinance take a lot longer to work through, so.
That was the word.
So, as read into the record, this is text amendment 2018-07. You may recall that we recently adopted this chapter, I believe, in 2017, and we started out with just site lighting that would pertain to multifamily developments, commercial development. We are proposing to amend this chapter to codify the city's requirement for subdivision lighting. We have another section of the Land Development Code that says all subdivisions need to provide lighting, but we don't really have any details under this chapter. So we're proposing to codify a policy that's been used within the city for many years This would apply to new subdivisions, and as the purpose of lighting in any subdivision or neighborhood is to assist drivers, pedestrians, cyclists in finding their way in the dark. And it's not primarily for the motorists. They have headlights on their vehicles. It's to help prevent hazards from pedestrians, cyclists, a dog running out in front of you, and so forth. So criteria that's proposed in this amendment range from establishing a minimum distance between light poles. This is done in the form of a range to allow flexibility with the placement of driveways, street trees, and also a larger range in distance as it relates to the rural residential zoning district. The maximum height is proposed at 18 feet. Typically, a pedestrian height light fixture is about 12 feet in height, so this gives, again, a little flexibility because subdivisions are not just residential. You can have a commercial subdivision as well, so it allows a little more flexibility. The installation is the responsibility of the developer, builder, or property owner that is moving forth a subdivision. Maintenance, the responsibility transfers to the city once the city accepts the roadway, public roadway infrastructure. One thing we wanted to make sure of is that the light fixtures are paid in full by the developers prior to accepting, and then the maintenance is actually done by Duke or so forth, and the city just takes in the repair requests. Yes, sir.
I applaud the decision for the developer to have to pay for the daggone light poles.
Yes.
However, have we changed the requirement for what that light pole looks like? My understanding is you can get a creosote pole, hang a light on it, and you've met the requirement. The drawing you've got there has a very nice looking light pole.
Yes. The existing section of the ordinance refers to full cutoff lights. It does not distinctly call out the pole. We could add that it'd be a decorative pole, because we don't allow wood poles in subdivisions. We tell everybody when we walk in the door.
Well, if that's a requirement, then I think we gotta add it in.
So
As
we'll
long
be
as
glad
we're in
to-
the process
Yes,
of changing
absolutely.
this now, let's say it's gotta be a decorative pole with a decorative, what do you call it? What's the thing on the top called? Fixture.
So,
Fixture, thank you.
We can add it,
Subject to approval of whoever, city
absolutely.
planner.
We'll find the
planners.
appropriate section of
Yeah.
chapter 12 to ensure that it's there.
So the background on that, the community I live in, we're paying $5,000 a month to pay for not just the electric bill, but for the lease that was taken out with Duke Energy on the poles.
For the poles.
So thank you, city of Belmont.
So who pays for the electricity?
The city does.
Now, is that only on public roads? Or is this going to extend to gated communities?
This would, the city's existing policy is on all public roads, the lighting, any lighting fixtures are paid, the lighting bill is paid by the city once it's been turned over.
Now, the way it's done in Reflection Point, where I live, is that the city agreed a while ago to pick up what the normal light pole cost would have been had we just put in the Mark I Mod 0 standard wooden pole and light pole. When we finally figured out y'all would do that, it was not made retroactive, unfortunately, but that was understood.
Talking about the cost of the electricity.
The cost of electricity.
Yeah, cost of electricity, okay. So my question is then, if we're gonna make the developer pay for the light pole and the fixture, and it's gonna be something other than bare bones, it's gonna be something decorative, subject to planning, they're gonna submit something nice, because that's what they wanna do in their development. Question is, will the city pick up the full tab for the cost of the electricity, even though it might be not on a public road? Because it doesn't seem, one could make the argument that the reasons you just suggested apply to any citizens of Belmont who might be in that community at any given time, not just the residents. So,
The difference in the bills.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with the difference in the
that-
bills for the
public works.
electricity.
well, I think, I don't know if it's, whatever the agreement was made with the city for our community, and I don't have the details because it was a couple of years ago, several years ago, but it seems to me that when you say that it's the responsibility of the city, it seems to me it shouldn't make any difference whether it's on a public road or a private road. You're going to pay for electricity, you're going to pay for electricity.
Well, I will
Now,
get that
granted,
cleared
the
up.
roads are different.
Right.
If you want to have a community with a gated community, you have to pave your own roads. I can understand that part.
I will get that clarified by
Yeah.
the city manager and make sure that I have the correct
There's
answer
some
on that.
history on that.
Yes, I'm unfamiliar with the
No,
history
yeah.
on that, and
Yeah.
I thought all electricity costs the same.
I wonder if it's, I mean, do you specify it's energy efficient or LED, or, I mean, if the developer's going to put.
See, they can vary,
Duke is actually moving towards all LED.
all LED, that's
Right.
correct, and we're trying not to be too specific because of technology
So
changes.
would Duke put that in there and manage that, or could they go get somebody else to put it in? I just don't know how that works. I mean,
I've known developers to go and buy light fixtures and so
as cheap as
forth.
they could, and you might pay more for the,
Well, again,
not cheap, but.
they have to
anything
be
could
full
happen.
cut off, and there are some existing specifications in Chapter 12 regarding the amount
Just
of
wanna make sure the
lumens
city's
and
taken care
therefore,
of,
so,
yeah.
yes, I feel it's already taken care of, so.
It sounds like it is. I just don't want some new community to get stuck with a lighting, street lighting bill, even if it may be a gated community. That's my suggestion. Now, so other people smarter than I may decide, no, sport, you got a gated community, pay for your own electricity for your lights. I don't know. Just throwing it out for
Yeah.
somebody to make a determination on.
I'll find the
Yeah.
details on that. My understanding is the developer and/or the HOA pays for electricity until a certain point that it's transferred over to the city, but I don't know the details of how that works, actually payment
Yeah, well,
of electricity,
in
but
our
I will
case,
find out.
It didn't all get transferred. I don't think it all got transferred.
Okay.
It is going to depend on, a developer could choose to put in more light bulbs.
That's correct, that's
The
correct.
city's not going to pay for the electricity.
Understood. For more,
Excessive bulk.
for more than is required.
Correct.
Right, got it. That makes sense.
So I just have a question, now that we've brought all this up.
Confused.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does this apply to public streets, or both public and private streets within new developments?
Lighting requirements
Yep,
are
it's-
just
it's just-
subdivisions,
it-
doesn't
yeah.
matter, private,
So it's
public,
all
streets,
the above.
all
Just making
subdivisions
sure.
are required to provide lighting.
That's correct. This proposed amendment also includes renumbering that is necessary for this additional criteria section of Chapter 12. So staff is of the opinion that this text amendment is in the best interest of the general public and consistent with the comprehensive land use plan, because it promotes Goal 6 that contributes to a high-quality, efficient, effective infrastructure throughout Belmont, and it also promotes public safety for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. So with that, we ask that you receive the report, make the required findings, and transmit a recommendation to approve.
Any questions for staff?
I have a question. What about, and I guess where I'm confused, is when we talk about residential areas, what are the requirements of any for non-residential areas?
The way this is written, it applies to subdivisions. That could be commercial subdivision, like someone who's going to do a business park and it'd be along the public streets, you would have street lighting.
Because
So
the
it could
way
be-
the 2B is written, it says residential areas, so I don't necessarily think that would include non-residential subdivisions.
Ah. I see what you're saying.
In other words, are we limiting ourselves too much?
So, yeah, let's change that just to street lighting fixtures in developed subdivision shall be at 140 and 160 foot intervals. Yeah, that's, sorry, yeah.
Good catch.
Excellent.
And the only other, in 2C, the second use of city should also be capitalized like the first use of the word city.
All right.
Any other questions or comments?
Do we have a foot candle requirement for streetlight?
And because that's.
We have in chapter 12,
You can
let's see.
have it relative
Here's one
replicate,
section.
that'd be consistent.
Are you talking about a minimum? We
Yes.
don't have, we
Well,
don't
and a
have a
max.
minimum, we
Typically
have
there's
a
a max.
maximum.
Okay.
Yes.
The only reason I ask is because I know from experience the more decorative fixtures and not the cut-off.
Not the full
Not
cutoff.
the full cut-off, 30-foot tall ones. They have a more limited spread. And so as long as we've determined that those fixtures that are, because Duke's going to be the one that does most of these.
Right.
That the ones that are Duke's supplying will meet the requirement for that 140, 60 foot, I think that's fine. My only concern would be that if they didn't, we're creating a standard that's not achievable, practically achievable. So that would be my only question.
Okay.
But you're saying there's no minimum?
There's no minimum. We have maximum light levels that are measured at the property line, and it's based on residential or commercial. So it's 1 foot candle for residential, 2 foot at right-of-way line.
So in theory,
or-
the street could be dark.
Yep.
Yeah, the right-of-way line.
So we're saying that essentially, as long as we put a light fixture out there, and we're not encroaching on somebody's yard with.
Correct. These are
Then we're
streetlights.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
Shelley? Question. Do we need to put anything in the ordinance regarding Alex's comment that you put in more light poles than are required, then it's going to be paid for by somebody else?
Well,
Don't need to do
again,
that?
I don't think this chapter addresses at all as far as payment of electricity, which is what we're talking about there. So that, I think, is typically a city council or management type policy that they can change at any time. Yeah.
Just checking. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, we don't actually state that this is a minimum or maximum. We're saying this is the policy. Placement of street fixtures are in whatever we're saying now shall be at 140 to 160 feet.
Correct.
Foot intervals. So if somebody wanted to do more, they would have to ask permission to do more. Because we're saying that
If
this
it's
is the.
closer than 100, yes, 140,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so,
But it's very rare. I've never seen someone come in and
I mean, most
request more.
developers aren't gonna
We
do
have-
that, but.
we tell them to
just-
go,
Yeah.
Maybe there's an overachiever.
Infill.
What's that?
Maybe there's an overachiever.
There's always one.
Yes.
I mean, more dense developments, like the Eagle Park might do something like that, but that would also, they're gonna be doing so many conditional pieces that the lighting would just naturally roll into that, so that's fine.
Any other questions, comments for staff? Okay. Chair will entertain motions to approve this change.
I move to approve the proposed text amendment with the additional changes suggested by board members tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried.
I move to find that this is a reasonable request in the public interest and consistent with the comprehensive land use plan because it promotes goal number 6 and also promotes public safety for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Next thing on the agenda is to approve the schedule of the meetings for next year. Everybody have a chance to look that over?
Looks good.
Is there a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. The agenda for next year is approved.
Would it matter if we had an issue? I think it was that was going to be the schedule.
Does staff have any other business to propose or any other member have any business? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved and seconded. Meeting adjourned. Thank y'all.
Where's the city attorney?
I haven't had coffee with
So we're sharing some of our duties that we.
Oh, my gosh, that's just what I need.
Somehow I knew it was gonna be either a conditional use permit from your zoning redone, it was gonna be a zoning redone.
Yeah, take another one.
City council does not like to
I'll take one for the
do
grandkids.
conditional use permits, because it's a quasi judicial proceeding.
No, I don't need
And they don't wanna have to go through that, like we do.
They're also.
When you get an appeal, which we're all, some of us will be trained on next month, or later this month.